the Detroit Lions. Um, they had they were another team that everybody wanted to mock an edge to at the end of the first round. Like it was one of those teams where you get there and you're just like, what edge is on the board? And they go Tyleik Williams instead, which I know people are kind of torn on, the value of him there and whatnot. So you're starting with him. What were your main thoughts with the Tyleik pick?
Listen, some people were high on him. Mike Renner was really high on Tyleik Williams, and Renner is a good draft analyst, so I get it. I get why they take Tyleik Williams there. They need defensive line, dude. We saw last year what happened to the Lions was they were just depleted on defense, specifically on the defensive line. So I totally get why they attack that, and he probably will plug in immediately and play.
Yeah.
So I probably would have taken him in the second round, but dude, I mean, he got picked with the 28th pick. They're drafting at the back end of the first, so I get it. I mean, if I'm nitpicking, I say, well, why couldn't you trade down and take him later? But some people were higher on him, so I overall think that's a solid first round pick.
Yeah, I think in hindsight, we were both. I was kind of like, felt like a little bit of a reach at the time, but and I think it's more so just to the fact that one of the biggest complaints, at the end of last season for the Lions was the lack of pass rush without Aiden out there. And he's not a great pass rusher right now. He could develop into one. He is an absolute game wrecker, though, in the run game. He is powerful. And at his size, he almost plays more like a 3-tech when he's more like a nose, where he can just shoot the gap, which I think surprises a lot of those interior offensive linemen when he just fires into the gap like a 3-tech. So definitely have a guy that they're going to be able to plug and start immediately. Should help their run defense out pretty well, and then we'll see if he kind of develops a pass rush set. But will be an immediate plug and play starter for them. And then I think we're both a big fan of the second round pick, Tate Ratledge. I think they moved up a couple spots to make this pick. But I like everybody was saying that dude just looks like a guy Dan Campbell would want on his team. The mullet out there flapping in the wind while he's doing his workout. Guard so from Georgia. Yeah.
I totally agree with that, dude. I absolutely love the Tate Ratledge pick. They filled their starting guard need in the second round. I mean, Tate Ratledge right now is the only rookie slated to start according to our lands. Although I think Tyleik Williams will play a lot of snaps, but yeah, dude. I mean, Tate Ratledge in the second round. Listen, a lot of people, like on the mock draft sims, you were able to get Ratledge in the third round a lot, but just look at how the draft was going. I mean, Tyler Booker went 12 overall. Gray Zabel went 18. Like, those interior offensive linemen are becoming more and more valuable in the NFL's eyes, dude. Like, and you see it because, I mean, the bad offensive lines that have bad interiors, dude, they just get wrecked, and the offense cannot function. So, totally loved the Ratledge pick in the second round, even though, he might have been a little lower on the consensus, but I actually don't even know where he was on the consensus, but he's a good player, and they filled a starting guard position, and now the offensive line, dude, I mean, their offensive line has absolutely no holes. I mean, we're talking about probably the best offensive line in football.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, he was one of those guys, to your point too, like when I was doing mocks, if he was there in the third round, it didn't matter which team I was picking for. Here's Tate Ratledge for you. Like he could literally either start at guard or compete immediately. So yeah, continuing to make sure that offensive line stays sound in Detroit, even in the post, Ben Johnson era, which will be interesting to see. And they also take Miles Frazier in the fifth round. Out of LSU to add even more depth to that offensive line, a guy that may be able to compete with Christian Mahogany at the left guard spot, or at the very least, immediately play a backup role for you. So adding that offensive, building through the trenches was a theme across a lot of teams this year. And the Lions, they've had one of the best offensive lines, making sure that doesn't go away, and then adding to that defensive line. And then one of the more interesting picks they made that, cost some capital was the Isaac TeSlaa pick, wide receiver out of Arkansas. I think they traded 2 third-round picks to move up for him. And I think it's kind of considered a reach based on the consensus a little bit. But he is a very interesting prospect because he, basically no production, none, but is an absolute athletic freak. He was one of the higher. He ranked first in terms of athleticism scores based on next gen stats. So they clearly watched the tape, saw what a freak athlete this guy was, combined with all of his testing at the combine, and said, "We want that dude on our team."
He is ranked 29th out of 3,800 receivers from 1987 to 2025 in RAS score. 99th percentile athlete. I mean, the dude is absolutely a freak. Ran a 4.43 at 2.7 or 2.14 was his weight. 6'3". I mean, yeah, the dude is an absolute freak. And listen, taking a guy like that in the third round, I like that pick, man. I mean, that's when you take those athletic freaks to see if they can hit the upside of their potential. So I absolutely actually really like. PFF has him at 6'4". Dude, if he's 6'4" and he ran a 4.4, I mean, dude, he's just an absolute freak, man. And he's not going to have a path to play immediately, but that's the ideal position for a guy like that who needs to develop, who doesn't necessarily know how to play the game yet, but he doesn't need to. That's not going to be his role here. And yeah, whenever a team trades up for a player, it is always interesting because it's like, okay, this team clearly expected this guy to be gone at this point and really fell in love with this guy and they want to go get him. So, and when I see a smart GM like Brad Holmes do that, I'm like, okay, that is interesting to me. Like they clearly see something in this guy. So I am intrigued by that pick.
And the thing is, too, well, we'll kind of never know because people don't talk about what their boards were like too much after the draft. So we'll never know if teams were at least in agreement that they were higher on him than the consensus. Like with a lot of these players, right, that go higher, that feel like reaches. Like we never really know if the rest of the league was at least somewhat higher on it than the consensus. But it's one thing is very clear, and that is that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have changed the culture in Detroit. I mean, over the last couple seasons, it's crazy to say, but the Lions are one of the winningest teams. And they have a type of guy they want on their team. And it has worked in terms of what they've built so far and people buying into that. And then going and getting guys in the draft like Tyleek, who's a dog, like Tate Ratledge, who's a dog, like Tesla, who's an athletic freak. And then one of my other favorite picks was Ahmad Hassanine, the D lineman from Boise State with a really cool story. I think he is technically the first player ever from Egypt to get drafted. And he has a cool story where I don't know if it was at the if it was at the Senior Bowl or if it was at like the Shrine Bowl. But the story of him like chirping with the coaches there for the drills, which that right there is the type of thing where they put Dan didn't even watch his tape. He just saw that. Was like, all right, get him in here. Exactly. We want that guy in our locker room.
He was also a pretty productive player at Boise, man. And getting him in the 6th round, listen, he didn't test well. That's why he went in the 6th round. But I mean, again, in the 6th round, love taking a chance on a guy like that. And he does feel like a Dan Campbell kind of guy. I actually kind of like hope they get Hard Knocks this year because I think they'd be kind of a fascinating team to watch in the offseason. And plus you have the Dan Campbell factor. But yeah, dude, I'm not surprised at all that they went interior defensive lineman, interior offensive lineman with their first 2 picks. This is just a very Detroit Lions draft, man. It's not flashy, but that's how they wanted to build their team, man. And that's what they've done. And like you said, it's completely changed the culture. They also get Dominic Lovett in the 7th round. He was solid, I would say. So that's a decent 7th round pick. Just an overall, I would say, solid draft. Like again, another team that didn't overthink it. They had a theme going in and they're like, we're attacking the trenches because that's how we built this team. And it was clear that they were lacking some depth there, especially from the defensive line perspective last year. And they needed the starting guard. So yeah, man, I love this draft for the Lions.
And Lovett's a really interesting one because, I think more and more we're starting to see some of these guys, and part of it's due to the amount of transferring and whatnot, where you have like higher star recruits that kind of fall really far in the draft. I mean, we had I think there was a list somebody had of like maybe 8 to 10 5-star recruits that went undrafted in the draft, which was wild. And Dominic Lovett, I think, was a 4-star. He may have been a 5 on some recruiting sites. And he started his career at Missouri and never really took off like we thought. Like I remember when he transferred to Georgia as Tennessee fans, and we were kind of
concerned.
Yeah, I don't have to play this dude the next couple of years, but he never really took off like people expected. So I love that for the value in the 7th to get a guy like that who clearly has had the talent and the skill set to get it. And to your point earlier with Tesla, doesn't have to play right now. Set him behind. Let these guys develop and see if they can become a playmaker for you. And then they also took Dan Jackson, safety out of Georgia. So of their class, they take 3 guys from Georgia, which is probably not a bad strategy. I mean, it's been working for the Eagles. So
Yeah, exactly.
that feeder program there. The only thing, last thing I'll say is I'm surprised they didn't attack edge a bit more, because the second Hutch got hurt last year, man, their pass rush was gone. So I'm a little surprised they didn't attack edge a bit more to have a top end pass rusher alongside Aiden Hutchinson, but also for depth wise. So only thing that kind of surprised me, but overall, yeah, I think it's a solid class. So what would you say is your favorite? I think I know it. What is your favorite pick for the Lions?
It's got to be Taylor Ratledge in the second round, dude. Listen, teams were I wouldn't say even overvaluing. They were just valuing those interior offensive linemen quite a bit, and to come away with one of the better guards in the draft to kind of solidify this offensive line, right? They had one hole, now they're going to fill it, and it's going to continue to be the best line in the NFL. So, yeah, I'm going to go Ratledge in the second round.
I would agree. To be different, I'll say Ahmed Hassanein. I think just the story alone is so cool, and then just the fact that it's a prime example of Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes just getting a guy that fits their culture, and they're so good at doing that. So hopefully we'll see him develop, maybe get some playing time. But I like that pick for them. Cool. And then we did touch on UDFAs for the Bears. For the Lions, I don't think there's any names that stand out here either. One of the only ones that does to me is Jackson Meeks, wide receiver from Syracuse. I know he was a little bit hyped at different points throughout his career. So they get him as a UDFA, another receiver to kind of add some depth there. But that wraps up the Detroit Lions 2025 class.